In today's video, I'll show you how to properly mosaic a flower pot. We'll go through the process of selecting the materials, cutting the pieces, and gluing them to the flower pot. Well, you better put your seatbelt on. Let's get to it. Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Julie. And on this channel, we discuss tips, tricks, tools, adhesives, materials, and specific mosaic projects like the one today, all to shorten your learning curve when it comes to creating mosaic art. So if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, please consider subscribing. Today's video is part one in a two-part series, and in part two I go over how to grout and seal your flower pot, and I'll put a link here in the description card in case you want to go watch it. I'll say it up front, I love to mosaic around flower pot. There's something about the challenge of tiling on a curved surface, plus I'm making something that's going outside in nature, so it makes me feel good to create something for the outdoors. A flower pot was one of the very first projects I did when I was first starting in mosaics. It was a large 10-inch flower pot. It was a bit overwhelming. I think that I started with too small of pieces and just gradually kept getting smaller and smaller. I was anxious to get the tiling done because I wanted to see how it was going to look grouted. And even though I've made many flower pots since then, I still get very excited when it comes time to grouting them. I just can't wait to see it finished. So the first thing you want to think about is, how big of a flower pot do you want to make? Do you need a really big pot, or are you going to make a smaller flower pot? Will it be curved, or will it have straight sides? The next multi-part question you need to ask yourself is, what colors are you going to include, and what materials? Sometimes your colors are dictated by the materials you're going to use. Sometimes you might have something like a special plate or tile or bowl or cup that you want to incorporate into your flower pot. The beauty of doing a mosaic flower pot is you can use any material. Tile, stone, glass, pretty much anything can be used in mosaics. We've got so much information to go over today, so let's get started. Today's flower pot design is a design I've been making forever now, and it's this one right here. I've made it in an array of colors over the years, and I'm not quite sure what color I'm going to pick today. I'm going to take you through my process of how I pull materials from inventory. So I know that I need 5 to 6 shades of the same color. I want them to be generally about the same thickness. They don't have to be. It does make your life easier if you're dealing with basically the same thickness of material. So the body will be multiple shades of the same color, and then the rim will be a coordinating glass gems or glass baubles around the top. And this design is one of those rare times where I actually use white grout. Even though I know it's going to be outdoors, the white grout creates such a nice contrast with all of those shades of whether it's blue, green, yellow, orange, whatever. And because we're going to be sealing the grout later on in part 2 of this video, that's also going to help keep it looking fresh. Terracotta pots are widely available. I picked these up from my local hardware store. I've also seen some arts and crafts stores carry them in their floral supply section. A few things you want to look out for with shopping for a terracotta pot. The first one is, you want to look for cracks. You want to make sure that there are no cracks. Another thing you want to think about is, when you think about how big of a flower pot do you want to make, think about where you live. Do you have a freeze-thaw environment? If so, this flower pot will need to be brought in so that the integrity of the pot is not compromised by the changing weather conditions. Or, if you're like me and you live in an area that is prone to hurricanes, you will also want to bring your flower pot indoors. Remember, you're also going to have a plant inside, which is going to make it heavy. You're adding glass, ceramic, porcelain, stone, whatever it is you're going to mosaic on the outside, and you're using thin set mortar as your adhesive, and then you're putting grout on top. So it's very heavy once everything is done. So for today, I've selected, this is a 4-inch flower pot. This pot is untreated, it's not sealed. I do not seal the flower pot until after the grout has cured. And then at that point, I seal the outside and the inside. But we'll get to that in part 2 of this video series. So like I said, to get started, I need to select 5 to 6 shades of the same color, about the same thickness. And then I can pick out my coordinating glass gems, glass baubles, whatever you want to call them. So let's go pick out some colors. Well, green won my heart. As soon as I turned around and went to look in my inventory, green just came to mind. Green in the garden. How appropriate. I went with 5 colors instead of 6 since this is a smaller 4-inch pot. As you can see, I went with all solids, and that's part of the design. I made sure to have a really dark green. You want to make sure you have a really dark color with this design that sort of sticks out. Then you want to have 2 to 3 medium and then a couple light. So I've got my 2 medium greens, I've got my 2 light greens, and I'm set as far as the material is concerned, and now I just need to pull some coordinating glass gems and I'll be ready to tile. I picked a darker green glass gem to go on the rim. I think it'll look nicely with my darker green tile. Well, now I'm ready to mix up some thin set mortar, and if you're curious how I mix up thin set mortar, I'll put a link in the description card, and you'll want to go to the thin set mortar chapter of that video. Okay, since I'm working with ceramic, I have my ceramic tile nippers, and I also have compound tile nippers just in case some of the pieces are hard to cut. I like to do a lot of cutting up front. It allows me to get into the flow of tiling, into like a mosaic zone. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut some of these pieces. I do see in my little bags that there are already some small pieces, so in a way I feel like I'm cheating. If you use ceramic bowls, cups, mugs, things that have a curvature to them, you're able to take advantage of that curvature, and it just perfectly fits the curvature of a round flower pot. If I were to have, let's see if I can find a piece. Here we go. Okay, too big of a piece. It shoots off the sides. It's not covering the curvature of the flower pot. This is too big. You can sometimes get away with using bigger pieces if you turn it vertically. But in this case, with this particular design, I like for all the pieces to be pretty much the same size. So I'm going to stick with pieces that fit nicely, whether I put them on vertically or horizontally. I'm not gonna have to worry too much about a piece being too wide for the flower pot. So I'm just gonna cut, and then I'll be ready to tile. So I've finished cutting all of my pieces, and I've got my flower pot sitting on a Lazy Susan. This is not necessary, but if you have one, it certainly helps to move the flower pot around as you finish tiling a section. So to get started, I'm going to look at all the pieces that I cut, and I'm going to look for the thickest piece, and I'll start with that piece, and that will dictate how much adhesive I need to put behind the thinner pieces. I have always worked on flower pots with the rim facing down, and I start tiling just below the rim, and I tile up towards the bottom of the pot, up towards the bottom. Okay. I try to keep a 1/4 inch grout line, but if I don't hold myself to it and I get a little bigger in some spots, that's okay. Every so often, take a moment to look over the sections that you previously tiled to make sure nothing has slid down. I'm using fortified mortar as the adhesive because it's a great bonding agent for the ceramic and the terracotta, especially when the flower pot will be subjected to moisture. When it comes to tiling along the bottom of the flower pot, you want to make sure that you don't tile over the edge, since that's where all of the weight of the flower pot will rest. If you start tiling in a session and you're not able to finish tiling all the way around, make sure you clean off your mortar so that you have a clean area on your flower pot to start tiling again. Now that the body of the flower pot is tiled, I'll move on to the rim. I just glue them on, and then when I come towards the end of where I started, I adjust the spacing in between each. Okay, you see how around the glass gems there's a little bit of mortar coming out? Looks kind of messy. The grout is going to hide all of that. You do want to be careful if you leave mortar on the surface of your tiles. You want to make sure that those are cleaned off, and the surface of the glass baubles, you want to make sure that the surface of those are cleaned off. I tried to center the glass gems within that rim around the flower pot. So I just eye it. I don't get a ruler out. The glass gems are imperfect and they come in different sizes. Even though they're all basically the same size, they are a little off from each other. The pot is completely tiled, and now I'm gonna let it sit for at least 24 hours before I grout. I'll give it one final check to make sure no pieces have slid down, and then I'm just gonna let it sit. Question of the day. Let me know down in the comments what material you like to work with when it comes to making flower pots. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help my channel, and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification so you never miss a single upload, and let me know in the comments if there's something you'd like me to cover in a future video. I'll see you soon. Bye. I am what? Ah, I almost had it. If you'd like to go watch that. If you'd like to go watch that. I'll use one of those in case you'd like to watch it. Oh, why can't, this just doesn't, that was good. That's a keeper right there. Bye. Okay. I hope you're coming back for the grouting, and if you're looking for more mosaic inspiration, I hope you'll check out one of these two videos. Until then, see ya.